Welcome back to Big Think, the show where I think big. You're probably wondering where I am in my Minecraft world right now. And if you're wondering that, that means you've not been a part of the streams, ladies and gentlemen. We made a house. On one stream, we built a house down there that I then abandoned, moved up here. And now we've made this house. It's got like, it's sick as fuck. It's like a little house on the top that isn't all that detailed. And then you come down here and you are in an underground bunker, which we're going to be expanding upon today as I talk about some stuff. Now you might be wondering, what is it I'm planning on talking about? What could I possibly have for this episode of Big Think? Must be something big. Yeah, see, big think, big. Yeah, I'm a genius. Must be something huge, considering that I've not done an episode of this in God knows how long. And the answer, ladies and gentlemen, of what I want to talk about today is school. Sorry for the delay there, but I had to look on killing that skeleton. The answer is school. That's right. I am going to be talking about school, the school system, my experience with school, and why I think school is fundamentally fucked, and, you know, just kind of my experiences, why I really don't respect school as an idea. Well, not as an idea. I don't respect how school functions currently. Now, listen, this is obviously coming from someone who is in a position of great privilege to have been able to gone to school. I understand there are lots of people on the planet from, you know, who aren't in positions as fortunate as I am, and they would love the opportunity to go to school. You know, and I think that that's obviously something that I should bring up to begin with, is that it is an opportunity. There are people in the world that like, they really wish they had it. And that's obviously incredibly valid, but also school is really something that I feel like everyone should have access to. We're burning the old house, by the way. That's how we're starting. School is something I think all people should have the option to do, you know? It's something that everybody in the world, I feel like, should do when they're really young anyway, just to gain social skills, to learn the basics, stuff like that. But beyond a certain point, school becomes useless. I legit, like, after primary school, I stopped gaining anything from school, really. In fact, school became such a negative factor in my life. It became such a bad thing for me that I don't know, I just kind of have such a strained view on school as a whole, on the school system, on so many of the ideas behind it. I just don't see it as, I don't know, I just don't see it as necessary in the form that it currently takes. Like, think about what school is right now. I'll think about what the school system is. I'm talking about in the UK, right? It is kids learning things, being put into social situations, being forced to learn things a particular way, being forced to learn things that are ultimately insanely trivial. Insanely trivial. Like, why does science need to be a mandatory subject? Or, well, it was for me in my secondary school, at least. Why do I need to learn about science? Or why do I need to learn about something like history? Now, history, again, valuable information. Of course, I think that history is something that should be obviously very protected and something that should be kept, logged, remembered. I feel like human history and the history of our Earth is an immensely important thing to keep hold of. But why is it something that every child needs to learn? I could have spent so much time growing up learning things that actually like were beneficial to me. I could have spent so much time growing up learning about things that interested me, that I had a passion for. You know? And that option kind of just isn't provided. And of course, people can make the argument of like, oh, but you can go to extracurricular clubs and stuff like that. Sure. But when subjects like music, when subjects like drama, which are two subjects, and film studies as well, subjects that I was immensely interested in, when those are taught anyway, why not just allow me to focus on those things? Why do I have to wait until, for me, it was waiting until sixth form to be able to focus on those things? You know? I didn't even do music at sixth form. I did drama and film studies. I wasn't allowed to do a third one because of attendance, which we're going to get onto why my attendance was so low later. But yeah. I don't know, man. It just felt like my time was wasted. I left school, and after dropping out of my sixth form, I left feeling like my time was utterly wasted. I left angry. I left ashamed. I left directionless. And I left feeling like the first quarter of my life wasn't really worth a lick of shit, you know? It just felt like... I don't know, it just felt... I don't like where this is placed. We're gonna move this a little bit. We're gonna kind of have a tunnel into a different room, I think. Yeah, it just kind of felt like a huge portion of my life was wasted. Arguably the most important portion of my life, the formative years, were wasted. I spent my time learning how to do ridiculous mathematical equations that everyone said, like, people are probably going to roll their eyes being like, oh, I'm never going to apply this in the real world. It's true. I am never going to apply that shit in the real world. You know? It's only stuff that's going to be helpful if you end up becoming a mathematician, which, I'm going to be honest, most kids aren't going to become mathematicians. You know, it's like... I feel like subjects that would be more useful just got, sidelined, if not taught at all. You know? Like, law and business. I kind of wish law and business was a mandatory thing. Do I think it would have been the most interesting? No, but I think it would have been immensely useful to kids of my age, learning about those sorts of things, learning how the real world works. But, I mean, it wasn't even an option. I forget if it was an option for GCSEs in secondary. If not, it literally wasn't an option until sixth form, which is college age. Like 17, 18, 19. Oh, well, 16, 17, 18, sorry. And, you know, by that time, I took sixth form just to do what I was interested in, which was drama because I loved acting. I still, that's still a passion that I wish I could tap into. You know, acting. Wait, what the fuck am I doing? It's like there's 2 trees here. I don't know. I really enjoyed acting. In secondary school, whenever we'd get a drama piece, I really enjoyed doing that shit. Even if it was incredibly nerve-wracking, the process of like figuring out a character and shit like that, and then actually figuring out a scene and stuff, I found it fun. I found it fun. In fact, when I was a kid, I really wanted to be an actor. I remember getting so obsessed with the process of movie making. I remember getting so obsessed with the process of like delving deep into a character and shit like that. Anyway, side rant. I'm going on a side rant. Yeah. I didn't end up taking the important shit because by the time I was in 6th form, I was at a point of like, well, I kind of know the general direction I want to take, and I want to learn about film. I want to learn about like how to structure scenes and shit like that in drama. We learn stuff like that. Want to learn how to like figure out a character. So I took film studies and drama. As I feel like it would be obvious that I would. I didn't take music because I did music GCSE, and it was all theory based for the most part. Very little performance based stuff. Very little like analysis based stuff. Which film studies was a lot of analysis. There was technical aspects, of course, but it was a lot of analysis, and I loved that about it. So I chose to do film studies and drama over music and drama. Which is still a decision that I am very, very happy I made. Incredibly happy I made. Seriously. I think it was the best choice for me. I need to fill this in. I'm going to make the room... I'm essentially just going to remake the room, just moved along a little bit. So we're going to fill this in. Yeah, I just feel like my formative years were wasted having it, like, maths drilled into my head. Having fucking science drilled into my head. You know, I'm learning about physics and fucking what else? I'm trying to think of what shit I would have learned. I'm learning physics, learning fucking crazy algebraic equations. I'm fucking actually PE. I kind of like that PE is a subject that's forced upon kids at school. Physical fitness is incredibly important. Like physical health is incredibly important. So, I don't really have too much shit to say about PE. Even if I didn't like it, I'm like that's the one thing I will say. Thank God for PE. And I thought English was okay too. I feel like the concept of English is incredibly important. Like, you know, learning how to actually properly use the language we speak. Absolutely, I am all for English as a subject. 100%, I think that English was a good subject. But again, once it started, like, once it started getting into stuff like figuring out like creative writing, I kind of wish that wasn't like forced upon us. I don't know. I semi enjoyed it and semi fucking hated it at the same time. And like analyzing books and shit was just. It was rough. It was rough. And it's I think another big factor in it isn't just like what we were learning, it's the way we were being made to learn it. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think I would have had so much of a better time at school if we didn't do things so... I don't know, in a way that just felt so, like... I don't even know how the fuck to describe it. It's such a weird thing to try and describe. It felt like... I don't know, it felt like we were being treated like we were all gonna have the exact same experience. Like, if everyone learns this thing this way, they will all have the exact same experience. Some kids were able to excel. I have friends who excelled in school. They did great. You know? And that's obviously a good thing. It's good that they were able to succeed in that field, and that was able to help them. Like, I have friends that have gone to university and shit like that. But for me, it was the biggest, like, obstacle ever, where I was in a position where I just... I don't know, I just couldn't really function. It was just in that position of me not being able to retain any of this information because it's being presented in a way that I just didn't mesh with. I don't just want to be like, oh, it was boring, but I did find school to be boring, for starters, which, you know, it's kind of a like not the best point to make, you know. Everyone's going to say school's boring, everyone's going to say learning's boring, whatever. But it, like, one of the big points is that, like, it is presented in a way that is so monotonous, so tedious. You know? And also, on top of that, it's just like... It felt like you would be punished for not learning things the way other kids did, you know? In place, there we go. Like, I remember I got plenty of detentions, I got plenty of, like, times where I was told off for not, like, keeping up with work, for not keeping up with, you know, how well other people are doing in class. And it's because I wasn't able to. I felt so trapped, I felt so lost, like, oh, I can't keep up with this. I just feel so, like... It just feels so much like I'm not able to compute on the same level that everybody else is. I'm not able to digest this information in the same way that everybody else is. I just feel like everybody else... Well, not everybody else, but the vast majority of other students, this system works for them, but because it works for the majority of students, they just assume it's going to work for me. And when it very evidently isn't. I don't want to get, like, too personal, but I was going through rough shit in school, man. School was tough for me. Like, it was really, like, school that instilled all of my mental problems, which I've spoken about it a little bit. I want an iron door. I'm using the rest of my iron to make an iron door. Fuck it. It really was school that, like, locked in my mental health problems. It was school that was, like, the factor that, like, fucked me up. because it kind of created that feeling of like, oh my god, I'm not as smart as everyone else. Oh my god, I'm not taking this in the same way everyone else is. Oh my god, I'm falling behind. My life's over. My life's ruined. I remember getting my GCSE results and then being underwhelming and just, I don't know, putting on the act that I didn't care when in actuality it just felt so defeating, you know? I was just in a position where the thing that for the past 7 years of my life, I was told this is the most important thing in your life yet. You need to do well on this or you're not going to go anywhere. And my results were mixed at best. And that was all of my worth was put on a sheet of paper that had letters next to subjects. Don't get me wrong, the subjects that I gave a shit about, I did well in. Drama, I did really well in. Music. You know, I didn't do the best on the theory-based tests that we did, but I was literally top of my class in performance. I did 3 drum performances. I was top of my class in that shit. 2 solo performances and a duo performance. The compositions I did fine in. The compositional stuff, I did okay. But like the performances, man, I not to toot my own horn, but I knocked it out of the park. I did well for myself. I was so proud of myself. You know? I think the one thing I'm thankful for is like English helping my ability to speak. That's one thing I will say, is that the subject of English, I remember writing a speech, and like I got a real-time evaluation of how much I had evolved on that front, where in year 9 was the first time we did speeches in English. Like we had 2 different tests, one in year 9, one in year 11, where we had to do speeches in front of the whole class, and it was nerve-wracking both times. I have immense social anxiety, which is obviously another factor as to why I don't like school. You know, being forced into social situations of that nature. Yeah, I have huge social anxiety. But learning English, like the first speech I did, it didn't go the best. Like we also had to like answer questions at the end related to our speech, and I remember someone asked me a question and I froze up. And I did the same speech again for the year 11 one. Second time I knocked it out of the park. I was still shaking like a shitting dog. I'm stood in front of a class of like 20 of my peers, and I have to give a speech about why I think the Bee Movie is the worst movie ever made. Yes, that's actually what my speech was about. Why the Bee Movie is my least favorite movie of all time. They were asking questions. I had answers. I said the speech with a level of confidence. I remember sounding like how I sound in videos. I kind of channel the same energy that I brought to that speech to my videos, you know. So that helped. There are things from school that I picked up that I think were genuinely super helpful. And then there's algebra. Then there's isotopes. Then there's fucking precipitation of waterfalls. And my time as a child was fucking wasted. Like, I'm getting angry thinking about it. My time was utterly wasted. And I don't blame this on the teachers. The teachers tried their best to, like, the teachers genuinely, all they wanted was to, like, set us up for futures. I had some lovely teachers throughout my years. Even in my least favorite subjects, like maths, I had some great teachers. You know? In fucking science, I had some great teachers. But my time, my childhood, where I was supposed to, like, learn the lay of the land, where I was supposed to be as best prepared for the adult world as possible, was fucking wasted. I was like, again, I've it's pretty obvious at this point. I have mental health problems. I am most likely incredibly, oh shit. I am most likely incredibly neurodivergent. I've never been, holy shit, that was close. I've still yet to be tested for like autism, ADHD. I need to be, because among my teachers, among my family, it's kind of like common knowledge that I have something. I remember, I've told this story on my main channel before, but I want to tell it here because I just find it incredibly funny. On my first day of sixth form, I had a drama teacher who I'd had almost every year throughout secondary school, so she already knew me. We were doing like a getting to know each other thing, because there were new students, because it was, now we're college age, some people were coming just for the sixth form that hadn't been to my secondary, and you know, it was getting a little personal. They were talking about like neurodivergency, and it's a drama class. Everyone is fucking autistic in there. And my teacher, she turned to me, and you know, she had like, I wasn't exactly like the fucking favorite student. She didn't know me too well, but she knew me well enough for teaching me like what 4 out of the 5 years that I was in secondary school doing drama. And you know, she turns to me and she says, "Are you neurodivergent at all?" And I said, "Oh, I've never been tested, but I've been meaning to." And she goes, "Yeah, definitely get tested." You know, that is a teacher, a drama teacher. Again, it's such like a shitty stereotype that like, oh, all drama students neurodivergent. It's true though. So a drama teacher who deals with neurodivergent autistic kids every day looked at me and said, "Yeah, get tested." You know, and I've had other teachers that have thought the exact same thing, and I'm like a kid with like serious like mental health struggles. Like they got bad in secondary school, man. Again, not to get too personal, but like I got to some pretty dark points. I got to some points where shit just felt kind of hopeless, and I felt like I was just failing on every front, and like nothing that I was doing mattered. And there was help, but no help on the front of like, oh, this kid probably isn't going to be able to do this in the same way the rest of these kids are. It was help on the front of, it felt not from the person that was actually helping me. I'm not going to say the name of the mental health helper I had towards the end of secondary school, but she was lovely. You could tell she cared. Every meeting we had, it would be like friendly conversations. It would be her. It wasn't like therapy, but it felt like therapy, you know? And that's coming from someone who's never been in therapy before, so I don't actually know how valid that claim is. But on the front of like them clearly knowing that there's going to be lots of students where this system just doesn't work, there was nothing to help us. The best they did was for students who were uncomfortable, they could step out of the room and do the exact same work somewhere else with a TA helping them. I had a fucking... Do I want to tell this story? I'll tell this story. I had a panic attack once in school. It was the first panic attack I'd ever had. I was in year 10. Or year 11. Was it 10 or 11? I think it was year 10. I think it was year 10. I remember I went... It was like towards the end of break. You know, needed a piss. So I went to the bathroom. And I remember just... like, all of the weight of all of the weight of all of like my wasted childhood kind of hit me in that moment. It was this moment where like I just started breathing heavy, my vision went blurry. I sat down on that toilet seat and I was fucking hyperventilating. And it was kind of in that exact moment that it clocked me like, damn, I'm wasting my time. I was at the time 16 years old, you know? I was like, damn, the end of my childhood is right around the corner. And I just kind of like I felt like I'd gotten nowhere since being 11. I didn't feel any closer to my goals. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel satisfied with how my time was spent. I just felt so empty and alone. Because like I had all of my friends who were experiencing great success, which again, I was so like the one thing that gave me hope was seeing my friends doing well. You know? But I just felt so in that moment like, oh my god, it's over. My life's over. I'm going to amount to nothing. I can't do anything. I don't feel prepared. I don't feel like I'm nearing adult age. I just feel so helplessly empty. And that's a lot for like a almost definitely undiagnosed neurodivergent kid to go through in that moment. Like, it's strange to think that only happened, what, 3 years ago? 2-3 years ago? I think it was year 10, it might have been year 11. Again, my brain doesn't like going back to that memory too much, so I don't exactly have an exact memory of when it happened. And do you know what happened next? Oh man. I think this is the event, the order in which the events happened. I walked into my lesson late because I think I texted my mum after it happened, and I messaged her like, I just had a panic attack. And I walk into my lesson and I'm like, I'm not doing okay. I'm like, I need to go home. And I essentially got told to fuck myself. It was the basic equivalent of that, where it was, well, we can't let you go home because you know, you've been your attendance hasn't been good enough. And bear in mind, my attendance was bad because of mental health issues that the school caused. That my terrible experiences and lack of any fucks given from the school caused. So yeah, I was essentially treated like a bit of shit on the shoe, you know? An inconvenience after having a fucking panic attack. At the age of like 15 or 16, you know? And like looking back on it, the way that those events unfolded, I didn't think much of it when I was actually in like the moment. Because it was all so much, I was just like trying my best to just keep my cool, keep my calm, stay okay, as okay as I could in that moment. And it's only been like recently looking back on it that I've been like, how the fuck can you see a kid have a panic attack and be like, yeah, you can stick out the rest of the day. What the fuck, man? Anyway. That's more of a my school problem, not a school system problem, but still. Getting back to it. Like, I had a full-on panic attack because it felt like my life had been that wasted. Like, I'd gained no valuable information. Like, I had walked out with no social skills. Like, I had walked out with nothing really to show for the amount of time that I'd spent there. You know? I just felt like my childhood was, you know, there and then gone. Like that. And that's when I started to develop insomnia. I remember it would be like every night up, staring at my ceiling, mind racing. Racing. A million thoughts a minute. Just racking my mind. You know? It's a lot for a kid my age at the time to, you know, to fucking deal with. I would show up to school every day, evidently shattered. Evidently on, like, maybe 3 hours of sleep. And that carried over into sixth form. It carries over to today, you know? I'm up at 3 in the morning filming this. 3 in the morning. And that's not even just, like, content creator brain. That's me, like, not being in a position where I can sleep just yet. And kind of just, like, fucking doing something to pass the time until I eventually crash. And it's just like... It's kind of like my proof that I'm not insane in my explanation of this shit, because it was my shitty experiences with school that caused that. I'm trying to get seeds. It was my shitty experiences with school that caused that to happen to me. I went from, like, in primary school being the kid with bright ideas who is never really able to... How was it described when I was in primary school? We're kind of diving into the neurodivergent thing here. But, you know, little side rant. I want to remember how my teacher described it. It was like, he has great ideas, but he never knows how to get them across. You know? I went from that, like, that bright-eyed kid who had so many ideas, who was, like, so excited, but just was frustrated with getting them across, to the point where I didn't have the fucking energy for those ideas. Because I was so mentally fucked from, like, how draining that time in my life was. And, like, developing insomnia, that those ideas just kind of stopped happening. That creativity left me. And that even caused me to get worse. But it was kind of like a snowball effect. Because then I was like, Jesus Christ, I don't even have that going for me anymore. I don't even have, like, the ideas going for me anymore. I'm just now left with no sense of creativity, no sense of purpose, running every school day on no sleep, feeling like I have no help, and I'm just being left to wonder, what's the point? And looking back on it, there was no point. There was no point for that level of ignorance being put towards me. There was no point for that level of, like, I don't want to say mistreatment, because it wasn't any, like, particular person's fault. It's more just, like, the system itself that it operates in that is the problem. It's that lack of any fucks given. And it affects me to this day. You know? I'm coming up on 19 now. It's technically the 8th of October as of when I'm filming this. In exactly a month, it will be my 19th birthday. Right? I'm an adult. And this shit is still affecting me. This still has such a chokehold on my life. All because of an ignorant system that doesn't truly give a shit. What the fuck? What the hell is going on here? Why can't I? Huh? It won't let me place seeds here for some reason. Weird. I'll fucking figure it out later. Where was I? God, that really distracted me, that seed thing just then. Yeah, fuck. Hold on. Yeah, just kind of that was such a big turning point in kind of just breaking me to the point where I'm still being affected at now almost 19 years of age. I don't know. And obviously, I'm not the only person this has happened to. I do not want to put it across like that. I remember was it year 11? We were, this is rancid. This story fucking boils my blood. This pisses me off to such an insane, like, even my music teacher, right, I'm just going to tell the story and I'm going to tell them what the music teacher said. There was a day, this was in year 11, I think, towards the beginning of year 11, no, beginning to midpoint of year 11, where we all had attendance meetings. People in different attendance groups in my year were put into different rooms. Like, the lowest percentage of attendance were put into one group, then the midpoint, then the second midpoint, and then the highest percentage of attendance were put into another group. And do you know what they said? I was part of the lowest because I had insomnia. I was going through so much shit, and I just, like, I wasn't in school half the time. It got to the point in, like, years 10 and 11, was more so year 11 than year 10, where I genuinely just was not in a lot of the time. Like, I got so sick and tired of it. I was, like, late whenever I did go in. When I was in, I was, like, miserable. And then a lot of days, I would just, like, say to my mum, I can't do it. And it got to the point where, like, you know how mums will always be like, yeah, suck it up, I'll go in. It got to the point where my mum, like, understood. My mum understood. It got that bad, and she was, like, fine with it. Like, when I dropped out of sixth form, it like, to her, it was something she knew was eventually going to happen. And she was, I don't want to say okay with it. She was hesitant. She was worried about what I was going to do for my future, but she saw the effect that shit had on me. Oh, it's the light source, I think. She saw the effect that had on me. And my mum, obviously being a reasonable person and a good mother, was just simply more concerned about my well-being than school. Is this even? Oh, it's as close as... that's annoying. Maybe I could move it one more down so I could have it be symmetrical. That's what I'll do. We'll move it one more down. Anyway. Oh wait, hold on, no. Wrong spot again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Good. God damn it. Yeah. Got to the point where like my mum understood and me dropping out. It was something she was hesitant about, something she didn't fully agree with at first, but she understood. And in that attendance group meeting, do you know what they said to us? Do you know what those two teachers that were quite high-ranking in the school, kind of like, you know, deputy heads, heads of houses, stuff like that? Do you know what they said to us? To this group of kids who were, you know, there was the troublemakers in there who were clearly just doing it for the sake of doing it, and that didn't give a shit about school and stuff like that, didn't give a shit about their future. There was that demographic that should have heard the thing they had to say, sure. But to the group of, like, either neurodivergent, mentally ill kids who clearly were really struggling, they said, look, we've been there, and do you know what we did? We sucked it up and just went in. That's what we did. You know, me and Miss over here, because they refer to each other as Miss and Sir, as, you know, demeaning as fuck as that shit sounds. Yeah. Me and Miss over here. I remember being in school, going through tough times, but do you know what we did? We pushed through, and we were resilient, and we showed up. We did our work, and to be honest, that's all you got to do. They told us to just suck it up. They said that to a group of kids who were, like, clearly struggling. And, like, even the people in the mid groups, like, we had a music lesson after that, and we, like, went into this music lesson, and, like, the music teachers were really cool. They, like, got along with everybody, you know. With the girls in the class, they would, you know, gossip with each other and shit. Music teachers were chill as fuck. Oh my god, that sneeze just disappeared as it was about to fucking come out of me. Whoa, I've never had that happen before. That's scary. I feel like my head's about to pop. Anyway, the teachers who were like, you know, the music teachers were friends with everybody. I remember what one of the teachers said, and again, I'm not going to name names here. She said, if my kid was in one of those meetings, I would kick off. I would complain. They were shocked. You know? That's what that she genuinely said that. She said, guys, tell your parents, please, because if I was your parents and my kid heard that, I would kick off. And I was the only person from my music class in that bottom group, I think. Everyone else was kind of, you know, in the middle class. Jesus Christ. In the middle group, either lower or upper middle group. I don't remember if there was anyone in the top group. And I remember getting in there. I wasn't the first in there, but I remember the teachers were like, they were sat there shocked, and they were like, which group were you a part of? And I said, I was in the bottom group. And they said, how was it? And I just said, terrible. Literally the worst meeting ever. What a waste of time. And they were just, even teachers were shocked. You know? I'm getting kind of, like, emotional thinking about this shit, man. And I shouldn't. It's behind me. I'm old now. I'm older now. I'm 19, nearly. I'm a month off 19. But my childhood got wasted. I was pigeonholed into this system that benefited some people, and us unlucky selection of people that didn't benefit. We just got kind of fucked by school. I was never, like, my mental health problems were never truly properly acknowledged by the school system. Besides, like, teachers I had that were very helpful. That were teachers that I had that were genuinely very helpful. I remember my tutor. Again, I'm not going to name names, but like, no, tutor. I'm not using it in the term as like someone who would like help us study and shit like that. We would, at the beginning of the day, we would have a tutor group where one of the teachers were assigned like a group of kids. That was like our house. It was broken into 4 different houses, and then there was 1 and 2 of each of those houses. So I was in blank 2. And my tutor, who I had throughout the entirety of secondary school, never had him for any lessons though. Never had him for any subjects. I had him throughout the entirety of secondary school as my tutor. And he was so helpful. Genuinely maybe the best like teacher I've ever had. And he never even like taught my lessons. It was just like the 30-minute tutor period at the beginning of every day. He was like so helpful. He would pull me aside and make sure I'm doing okay. He would like be checking up on me. He was such like one of the biggest advocates for me like getting help in the school system. He was having chats with my mum. Like, again, I want to like really heavily state that there were teachers who were seeing like the bullshit and wanted better for us. You know? What was the point I was trying to make? See, it's that probably being neurodivergent, probably having ADHD or autism or both. Who knows? It's something. It's something. I don't even know what I want this room to be. I'm just carving out rooms. Here is the general outline for a rune. For a rune? For a room. A 5x5 room. I'm just going to do it on this side to make sure I got the right amount. I wasn't counting. Yeah. Like, there were teachers who really cared. There were teachers... Whoa. No. We'll block that off. Okay. I'm probably going to need to go in and light that cave up at some point so that mobs don't spawn. Yeah. Teachers who, like, really cared, but the school system on the whole was just so punishing to people like me. People who had mental health struggles. People who had, like, difficulties learning in the same way other people did. We were just kind of shoved aside and treated like shit. We were seen as the unproductive kids, as the kids who just weren't putting the effort in, as the kids who didn't actually really care about their learning environment, who didn't actually care about what it meant to be a student. You know, that's what we were seen as. That's what I was seen as. And it hurt, you know? It really hurt being just, like, my worth was seen as how well am I doing learning these things that I'm not interested in a way that is, like, too much for me to handle, surrounded by people when I'm a kid with immense social anxiety. That's where my worth was seen. Doing this shit that I'm obviously not going to do well in. And it was like, the proof was there that I could have done better. Had I not been in a position that was as difficult as it was. You know? Like, the subjects that I cared about, the subjects that I was really passionate about, where I didn't feel like it was just pressure, and learning about things I'm not interested in and learning them in a way that doesn't suit me. Like, again, music performances, top of my class. Okay, I'm trying to remember what songs I played. I think I played No One Knows by Queens of the Stone. I'm a drummer, by the way, so it was drum performances. Did No One Knows by Queens of the Stone Age, Toxicity by System of a Down, and I did for the duo performance we did Guns for Hands by 21 Pilots because it was a piano player that I did my duo performance with. He did piano and I did drums. Who would have fucking thought? Yeah. That, top of my class. Drama. I did really well. I passed it. I don't think I passed it with, flying colours or anything, but I passed, you know? I did decent. It's really only those two that I did well in. I think I did okay in English, actually. I think I did okay in English, because English I was fine with, and then film studies was a thing that I only did in sixth form, because that wasn't available in secondary. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel so cheated out of valuable knowledge, out of valuable time, out of a childhood. I feel cheated out of a childhood. And that sounds very overdramatic. That sounds like the most hyperbolic thing I could say, but it's true. I feel cheated out of a more impactful, out of a more valuable childhood. And I'm an adult that feels like an adult but doesn't feel prepared to be an adult. I lack social skills because I was just thrust into every day. I just felt uncomfortable because I'm in a classroom of 30 other kids who all have so many friends, and I didn't have the most friends. The friends I did have were amazing. Seriously, if any of my secondary school friends are watching this, I love all of you. You're the best, genuinely. You people made such a difficult thing so much easier to get through. I have nothing but love and immense respect for those people. They are the best. The people who were there for me in secondary school. I'm in a classroom full of kids, and I'm scared, and I feel alone, and I feel trapped. And for as much as I was able to put on a face throughout a lot of secondary school, like in my classes, I'd be able to joke around with the person I was sat next to. I was able to put on an act sometimes in certain classes. Then there were other classes where I was getting pulled aside because I'm not doing work. I was getting pulled aside because I'm not being productive. I was getting pulled aside because I'm not partaking. And the teachers the teachers can tell that something's up, but nothing got done about it, And that's the case with so many other students. I didn't want to I was more wanting to make this a general statement about school and how it fucks kids over like me. Fucks kids like me over. But it ended up just becoming me. Well, because it's a podcast about me. But yeah. Me and everybody my age like me, almost everybody my age like me, was cheated, was thrown to the side. And yeah, just, I don't know. I just don't want to say I felt worthless. Felt like I was treated like I was worthless, but I feel like I was treated like my problems didn't matter because I was different or whatever. Because, I was quote unquote unproductive. I was a bad student, a lazy student. I didn't care about my grades or whatever. Right, time to light this place up. Or at least the area closer to my house. It's a cool little cave. Have this be my cave entrance. Like, imagine how good of a thing school could be. You know? Imagine how great it could be to have an environment where you are being set up for your future, where you are, like, being allowed to learn how to be a sociable person in your own time. There's no stress, there's no added pressure. It's you taking it at your own pace. It's you learning what you want to learn in a way that actually best suits you. Obviously not the way you want to learn it, but like to an exact T, because there's going to be kids who are just like, oh, I don't want to do the work. You know. It's like, instead of just forcing every kid to do it the exact same way, and then when a kid doesn't take to that way very well, being like, oh, well, just lazy, unproductive student, we're gonna list every problem it could be that isn't us and say that that's the problem. You know, lazy student. Oh, we're gonna look into your home life or whatever, because surely it must be a problem at home and not school. Shit like that, no, you know. Like, I have this vision of what school should be, where it's a place where kids are listened to, you know? It's a place where problems aren't treated like inconveniences, they're treated like actual issues that should be solved. You know, it's what it's what I wish school was for me, and it's what I'd like school to be. I know if I ever have kids, I want school to be that for them. It's so upsetting to think that, like, I could have been in such a better position had I just been listened to. Had my problems not been treated as, like, inconveniences, had my differences to other kids not been treated like just, oh, this is a lazy student, number 10. Had it been treated like, oh, there's clearly something wrong here, let's get to the bottom of this and figure out how to, you know, actually do things in a way that benefits this kid. But it was treated like, oh, the only solution I can think of is you're a lazy student. That's why you hardly did any of the fucking homework. That's why you're having such a difficult time in class. You know, the solution, oh, sorry, the answer must be that you just want to mess about all day and do none of the work and not engage with your fellow students. You want to be disruptive. Yeah. Fun. Love that is how people like me are seen when it comes to school. I don't even know. This feels like the most incoherent ramble I've done so far. I've gone over an hour with this one as well. This feels like it's easily just the most blabbery. Like, it's the one where I am the most just, like, a mental rabbit hole. But I like that. With a subject like this, I like that I am so passionate about it that I can just, like, go off on so many tangents. And I got like, legitimately mad at points talking about this shit. You know? I feel for anyone going through similar stuff to me. I feel for everyone who kind of can relate to what I've spoken about here. you know, I hope that this has kind of put into perspective kind of my full opinion of the school system. I think that it is horrible. I think that it's broken. I think that it needs to be drastically changed. And I believe that until... I don't know, I was going to say until that change happens, and I had nothing to say after that. I don't fucking know what I was going to say, dude. I don't know. I just believe that change needs to happen in the education system, because as of right now, it's not beneficial. Doesn't help anybody. Or doesn't help people like me. It forces people like me to be kind of pigeonholed into these little groups that are known as the unproductive weirdos, that are known as the kids who are lazy, you know? And it kind of forces me to just have to view myself that way. And it stopped me from having a productive childhood. My childhood was spent being uncomfortable in class. It was spent not being able to retain information. It was spent learning things that I didn't care about. And it was spent feeling useless. That's how my school life was spent. Short bursts of happiness. Short bursts of moments where I felt like I fit in when I was in the right subject, or certain break times where I was able to, you know, do fun shit with my friends, or when my tutor would pull me aside and actually give a shit about me and check in on me. Moments. But my 5 years of secondary school, my 3/4 of a year at sixth form, were wastes of my time. And I was not set up for adult life. I was not taught anything meaningful. I gained absolutely nothing. And I am now in a position where I feel like I'm being punished for that in my later life. I felt like I was being punished for that during school. Yes, fuck the school system. It needs to be fixed. Students that are neurodivergent, students that have mental health problems need to be need to stop being treated like the lazy outsider weirdos who are just not wanting to pay attention, who are just like the troublemakers who just want to sit there and be lazy, because that's not what we are. That is not what we are. We have genuine problems that just don't really get properly addressed. You know, you get given a mental health counselor that you get to meet up with once every term, and that's it. It's up to the teachers to like pull you aside and disrupt their own days to actually make sure that you're doing mentally okay, according to school. Yeah. I hate the school system. It needs to change. Yeah. Rant over. Thank you all so much for watching this episode. Let me know what other topics you'd like to see me talk about down below. There's so much more I could have talked about in this. So maybe a follow-up about specific experiences could come soon. I feel like this could have gone for 2, maybe even 3 hours. That is genuinely how much I have to say about school and how passionate I am about this topic. But yeah, let me know what other stuff you'd like to see me talk about down below in the comments. Check out my other episodes of Big Think if you haven't. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.